Hello, it's Mr. Burns here. We're going to talk today about the fundamental political principles. This is also called the founding ideas of our government, and we will revisit these throughout the year. So these are very important concepts, and that's why we start with this in Unit 1. So you should have your Cornell notes out, number 3, in your binder for Unit 1. And following along this PowerPoint, you will fill in the Cornell notes. Anything written in red on the PowerPoint, you will fill in your notes. All right, so we're going to start at the top, and if you've ever done Cornell notes before, on the left side of the page is the question, and on the right side of the page is where you write your answers. So let's start with the basic question: what are the fundamental political principles? These are the concepts that define and shape American constitutional government. So they're kind of like the rules of our nation. And when we talk about principle, we're talking about principle that means rule, not the principle like shown in that picture or Mr. Eline. Okay, so a principle is a rule or belief that allows you to decide between what's right and what's wrong. And in this case, these hopefully are what's right about the United States and our government. The first of the principles is consent of the governed. And one way of thinking about this is consent means power. The governed are the people living in the government. So another way to state this is power of the people. And it's basically this contract. It's not a real contract that we sign, but it's a kind of an unwritten contract where the government will give people protection of their rights in exchange for the government having the authority to rule them. So let's look at some other governments where the people are not the source of the power. So in a democracy they are, but there's a few where they are not. And here, if we go to the next slide, we have an autocracy, which is one person has all the power. Some examples of that are a monarchy, like in Great Britain, and a dictatorship like we've seen in the past, or in North Korea right now. We've seen in the past with Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Benito Mussolini, etc. We have a representative government. That's a little bit different. It's kind of what we are now, representative democracy. But let's look at a direct democracy. That's where a citizen would vote on every single law, every single change. So every day on your way home from work, you would have to go to the voting booths. And that would be, okay in a small country or in a small area, but not in a country as large as the United States. You have an oligarchy where a small group have all the power as opposed to one person, like an autocracy. We have a theocracy where the government is controlled, or God is the center of the government and the ultimate authority. And then you have an anarchy where no one is in control. Okay, that would not work. But representative democracy is one we're going to revisit. The second concept is democracy. And in this system, the people rule. And that is exactly what democracy means, having to do with the people and then rule or government. So it's a word derived from Greek. And you can see that when you look at the way the word is broken down, it makes sense. Demo meaning having to do with the people, cracy meaning government. And remember, you can pause this presentation at any time if you need to catch up or go back and review your notes. All right. The third fundamental principle is representative government. And in a representative government, the people elect officials to make laws to run the government based on their behalf. So we elect senators, we elect representatives, we elect the president. And the president is supposed to make decisions for the people. They're not supposed to have their own interests. They're supposed to have the people's interest in mind. And of course, that doesn't happen all the time, but many local, state, governing officials, that's their primary focus. When they get to the national level, it's a little different. They have a little bit more of their own agenda. Although that's not right, it's kind of the way our government has developed over the last couple hundred years. All right, we have limited government as our next fundamental principle. The government can only do what the people have given it the power to do. It is not absolute. It is not all powerful. The Constitution is the document that defines what the government can and can't do and limits the power of the government. The government is limited. It is not absolute. And then you have the rule of law. Everyone must follow the law, including government officials. So if someone who works for the government commits a crime, they are still punishable by the same law that everyday citizens are responsible for. Okay. And then we have two more. Majority rule. Decisions are determined by the majority of people. So if there's a vote, whoever gets higher percentage or more than half, that is the person or the vote, or that is the idea that will go into law. So that's the majority rule. It doesn't have to be 50%. If there's 3 or 4 different people running, it's whoever gets the most votes. If it's a simple yes no, then whichever of the two wins would go into law. And then you have minority rights. Minority rights has nothing to do with race or ethnicity, but the opposite of majority. If you're in the minority, you're in the less than half, and your vote did not win, but your rights and opinions are still protected. So if you want to protest, if you want to petition, if you want to assemble peacefully, if you want to express your opinions, you may do so, even though you did not get what you wanted, or the person that you wanted to represent you did not win, your rights are still protected. And that's the last of the fundamental concepts. Okay, so once you've finished this presentation, there's an activity on the back called headlines. There is a word bank at the bottom. Try to complete it without using your notes. If you need to, you can check with someone sitting at your table, and they will help you out, or you can compare your answers. If you absolutely have tried and there's a couple that you're confused about, flip it over, quickly read the directions, read your definitions, and then go back and try to finish the activity. If you have any questions, you can also ask